Well, welcome to Mental Stillness Podcast, and I've got a friend, John Black, here today, just to hear from and learn from. And as I've been having guests on this podcast, I'm trying to get just a really people who come from different experiences and different backgrounds, and it's just really interesting what lessons we can learn from people. And so, John, I would love for you just to introduce yourself, and then share whatever you feel like to the listeners, information that would let them know a little bit about you and who you are.
Yeah, sure. Thanks for having me. Happy to be here. Like you said, my name's John Black. I am a resident of the great city of Lexington, Kentucky. I've been a real estate agent here in Lexington since 2016. And before that, came from a background of doing some creative direction and other work for nonprofits, mostly overseas. And so it's kind of been a long and winding and somewhat unexpected road and journey to get where I am right now in a business sense and in a career sense. But I love it. I love what I get to do every day, and weirdly have found ways that the previous occupations and careers that I've had in nonprofits have kind of been lateral moves over to what I'm doing now in real estate. I never thought that would be the case, but yeah, I've been doing it since 2016, and getting to help people every day make big decisions with buying and selling real estate, and it's awesome. It's something I really enjoy. So
love that. Well, I love all the variety of experiences that's built to this current season you've been in, and so the conversations we have on here is a whole lot about obviously our own mental well-being, and then also the leadership space and trying to pull those conversations closer. And so if when you think of the early years of John as a leader, what comes to mind for you of maybe initial leadership experience or initial leadership pressure, and like, oh, I'm in it now. Now it's not just, maybe there's other people I have to, bring along or pour into. And I don't know when that point crossed for you, or if it was always just kind of running solo. But I guess tell me a little bit about when you started to intersect with leadership.
Yeah. That's a good question, and one that I think I'm still kind of trying to figure out the answer to, even as I go. I would say that for a very long time, I've been just kind of on my own. I did a lot of freelance photography and videography, did some like grant writing type things for these different nonprofit organizations, and it was really all just kind of me holed up in an office or a bedroom or wherever I could land and get internet access to piece these projects together. And so the leadership roadmap is probably one that your listeners don't want to follow as far as...
Well, they can learn what not to do.
Yeah, that's right. I can tell you that for sure. But getting into real estate, there's... I don't want to say there's a lot more writing on it, because obviously I cherish what I was able to do to help people in the nonprofit sector. But making these decisions, or help people make these decisions for buying and selling what will probably be the greatest asset or the biggest purchase or decision that they'll ever make, I think I had to understand pretty quickly that if I didn't step up and assume a leadership role and kind of help to guide that process, then a lot of things could go wrong, and I would be responsible for financial ruin or just a lot of unhappiness, on behalf of my clients who...
Can we just say guilt?
Yeah, a little bit of guilt, yeah. But, just wanting to feel like that I was equipped to take on that role, and also to use that knowledge and that experience to then empower them, to make them feel like they can trust me, and that they could make a choice for themselves and their families that would ultimately be a good one, based on the leadership that they've, trusted me to guide them through as far as the process of real estate goes. And so it's been, like I said, it was definitely an unexpected journey into real estate. I was doing the nonprofit things and spending a lot of time overseas, and I was in Ethiopia for a couple weeks when my son was, I think, 6 weeks old, and I remember FaceTiming my wife, and it was the middle of the night back here, and Asher was having a meltdown, and I was like on a sunny, beach in Ethiopia, and
You're like, hey, honey, look at the ocean.
and I could just see in her face and obviously hear Asher and realize, like, this is not sustainable. This is not something that I can continue to do and also be about what I want to be about. And that is, to be a good father and to be able to be a good leader, even in the context of my home life. And so, so the transition to real estate was really like a shock to the system initially because I went from this kind of like freelancing, float along, pick up a project when somebody calls and just sort of fly by the seat of my pants to like, okay, now the rubber meets the road. Like now there are people who are relying on me for these big decisions. And so I need to like bring my A game and be present in this moment and soak in all of the wisdom and all the leadership that I can from the people who have gone before me so that, I can be trusted to do that too. So
ton of insights in there. Like it sounds like there was a pivotal moment where you started to recognize like the impact on other people based on how you were or weren't leading comes to mind. I think that's a great thing to consider for leaders to be, first of all, what's it like to be under your own leadership? Like what is the other people's experience like? Because sometimes when in leadership, it's so easy to get caught up in our deficits and I need to get smarter, I need to get quicker, I need to get better. But sometimes even just thinking like, but what is their experience? And I can help inform my next move. And so I love that you had two things happen. It sounded like you took an assessment of the impact, and then it's like, okay, it might not be maybe I shouldn't be in Ethiopia, to use that example. And so impact then led you to a sense of urgency where real transformation and probably a big change, I would imagine, happened. And so kind of that impact and urgency. And so just leaders listening might be a good thing for you to consider with the people that you're, the people on your team and the people that you've been trusted to lead. So I guess when I think real estate, especially before I bought my first house, and if I would have known you at the time, I would have used you. So, you weren't a real estate agent at the time, so I dodged one there.
There's plenty of us out there.
So I remember that, early on, it's like my picture of real estate was from probably Love It or Listed on HGTV, right?
Yeah.
And so just this clean, sterile, we're looking at 3 houses, pick between. It's so much messier than that. I got some friends in real estate. And I guess with speaking into just sense of normalcy, real estate world is not a 9-to-5. It's not one you go and you sit in your nice little, you're out all over the place, probably getting messages and calls all the time, deadlines, and, we got to put a new offer in and all these things. So I guess tell me a little bit about how do you keep a semblance of normalcy when you're in a field that is probably all over the place at times?
Oh gosh. There is not a lot of normalcy in real estate.
Step one's awareness.
I will say. And that, again, I think is where my previous occupational experience and career experience has helped me, because to get up and know that I'm going to go out and shoot this project today or write for this thing or whatever, and then tomorrow it might look completely different. I really enjoy that spirit of like spontaneity, and it keeps me fresh. It keeps me on my toes. And so real estate is very much the same way. I didn't, even getting up this morning, I had 2 clients reach out and ask to see a house that I didn't know that I would be in Richmond at 4 p.m. today, but now I do because they want to do it. And so I think that the normalcy piece is trying to make sure that I'm setting boundaries so that I can protect not what matters most to me, because real estate matters a whole lot to me, but again, like making sure that I have time for my family. I'm a pretty active person, and so making sure that I have time to run or go climbing or, do these other things that I know will kind of help fill my tank again, then I can I can better face sort of the lack of normalcy and the sometimes frantic nature of real estate. And so I think it isn't so much about setting a schedule in a business sense for me as it is about making sure that my schedule when I am not, on the clock is something that I can protect and that I can, value and continue to invest in. And so if it's, just being present at home, making sure that my phone's on Do Not Disturb so I can spend time with my family, or like I said, in the morning, make sure that I can get out for a run just to clear my head and get ready for the day. If I wasn't doing those things, I think that I would crash and burn a lot sooner because things can be so frazzled. So I don't know if that's exactly the answer to the question that you're asking, but it is a very unpredictable business, which I do enjoy, but I need some sort of structure or set schedule outside of that.
In your role, does your role match your wiring and personality? Because the frantic thing for you is life-giving. There's a part of that probably drew you to real estate. Yep. Is that day in and day out? Like, I like the idea that I might get a call and my day is not going to look the exact same. That would terrify some people, and other people it's a shot in the arm every day, where it's like it's a good thing. And so, be thinking of like even your placement within the organization or the team. How in line is your own personality and wiring to that? I think it's an important question, and there's certain seasons where that's not always a reality, but I think it's worth asking if there is a little bit of lateral movement, a little bit of flexibility within the team. It might be worth considering. I know you talked about this, when on the clock and off the clock and boundaries and things. I feel like for me, I hear that language of like, on the clock, off the clock, and to me, it's almost like when I'm at work, I'm on the clock for work, but when I'm away from work, I'm on the clock for family. I'm never really off the clock. It's just how do I make sure that when I'm at work, I'm prioritizing work. I'm not saying don't take the call from your son's school, but if there's things that can wait, like how to really maximize my impact there and be productive to support my family in all these ways. But then at home, same thing. And so to me, I always think about boundaries as like, I need boundaries in place to allow me to be on the clock at home, and I need boundaries to be in place so I can be on the clock at work. And so I don't know if you have any thoughts on that, but I think that's important for people to hear, because sometimes it feels like if I'm off the clock, I'm kicking my feet up. I'm not maybe not as engaged at home because, hey, I'm off the clock. I'm not working. Yeah, you are.
Yeah. I think that for me, it's just the understanding that we have a very finite amount of mental energy, emotional energy that we can give over to any one thing at any particular time. And so if I am at home with my family and I have people texting me about home inspections or whatever else, I know that I can't give them the best advice I need to give them, because I'm also trying to, play Fortnite with my kid or whatever and watch him destroy me. So I think for me, I don't know if it's compartmentalizing, but it is just making an intentional effort to say that when I am at home, when I am with you here on this podcast, like my phone is off, because I want to be about whatever it is that I've committed to at that time, because I know I can't fully give myself over to that if I also have, this on the back burner or on the brain also. And I know we can't always like 100% focus and not think about the things that are pressing or, things that we need to get to after we're finished with this or whatever. But I think trying to continue to reinforce that thought process and making sure, that we are giving ourselves over to the thing that we've committed to in that moment. And this can wait. Like I always have to remind myself also that for the most part, that if another agent is calling me about something or wanting feedback on a listing, like I don't have to share that sense of urgency. Like their urgency is not my urgency. And so if I don't have time to respond in 30 seconds, like
they'll be okay.
That's okay. Like the world's going to keep going. Like no one's going to die, especially in my job where like we're not dealing with such, serious consequences for the most part. And so, I think that is a healthy way to think about business in that sense that I don't need to be accessible and be available all the time. We carry computers in our pockets that make us feel like, well, gosh, I'm on a beach vacation, but I can work anytime. It's a blessing and a curse, but I think it's more a curse than a blessing if you don't think about, what it is that you're doing in that moment. And
I love that.
Wait.
Yeah. So I know you mentioned interest of running and climbing and how those are super helpful, just almost therapeutic in kind of the mental reset that we all need, engaging our bodies in that way and just to be at our best. And so I know you've had your own journey of running, and I know you've ran years ago and then more recently kind of got back to it, and also some climbing hobby. I don't know how long that's been a hobby, but that's been really neat to kind of see and an experience you've had with your son. So I guess on a personal level, if you can tell our listeners what kind of internal process have you had of making some of these shifts? I know like you quit for a while and you got back to it. Like what was it that you felt like in that moment you needed to kind of change some things up or to move in a different direction personally just to be at your best?
Yeah. So the running thing, I was a distance runner for a long time before we had our son, who was 8. And when he was born, in the franticness and the just trying to keep this kid alive and, not knowing how to be a parent and all that, a lot of things just kind of fell by the wayside, and running was one of those things. And running was and is a great outlet for me. Like I even mentioned earlier, as far as being able to clear my head, it obviously has like great health benefits. And when I start my day with a run, I feel like I've already accomplished something, and and then have the energy to kind of get through whatever else is in front of me for the day. But I set all that aside, and then about a year and a half ago, was really just kind of taking a mental inventory and a physical inventory of kind of where I am now, and kind of what I want to be about, and what the next 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, 20 years of my life will look like if I don't start to implement some of these things that I know that I should be doing, or things that gave me joy before. And one of my, I hope I don't butcher this, but one of my favorite quotes, and I think the guy's name is like Saint Anton de Exupéry,
we'll go with that.
Yeah, okay. But the quote, I know, he says, what saves a man or what saves a person is to take a step and then another step. And it's always the same step, but you must take it. And I think I got so frustrated because I felt like if I was going to start running again, I wouldn't ever be a distance runner again, because now I'm 8 years older and I'm out of shape and I weigh 50 pounds more than I used to weigh and all this. But I knew I needed to take that step, like for a variety of reasons. And so I went out and I ran for 10 minutes and I was gassed, and just wanted to be anywhere but on the track. But the next day I went out and did it, and it was, a little bit easier and a little bit easier. And taking that step and taking another step. And now I'm running about 40 to 50 miles a week, and I've been doing that for about a year now. And the benefit from that in so many facets and areas of my life have just been like immeasurable. But it all started with that commitment to just take a step and not even really know like where that would go, but know that I needed to do it. And I think the climbing piece was similar to that. It's something that my son wanted to do, and I obviously want to create core memories for him and be able to experience these things together. And so we started doing that about 8 months ago now, and have done it pretty consistently. And there's a kind of a funny story that I'll share that I think relates to leadership on some level, in that we will go and we'll climb. It's an indoor gym, and there are all these different routes that you can take. And he will go, and his goal every time is to climb 100% of the wall. Like, to him, it's not a success.
Black or white,
yeah,
right? Yeah.
Like, if I don't make it to the top, like, I'm not doing it. And so, but recently he started implementing this thing where he says, like, can we switch to practice mode? Like, so now if I don't make it more than 20 feet of this 50-foot wall, like, I'm going to stop, but it doesn't count against my, like, success rate, because it's just practice mode. Like, it's not a big deal. And I, obviously humor him with that and say, hey, that's fine. We can do it. It's just practice mode. Go try this new wall. But I've also, as we've kept doing it, try to help him see that, like, there is success in failure. And if you don't make it to the top, but you get right back on and try again, and you make it like one more hold than you did last time, if you wake up each day and you just try to get 1% better than you were before, like, no, you're not going to be at the top of this 50-foot wall today because you've never done it before. But if you don't even try, if you kind of live life as like, well, I'm just in practice mode, this doesn't count, then you're never going to see, what you're capable of. And you're also not going to learn from your mistakes. I mean, you're not going to see your failure as an opportunity to experience success and to really glean those life lessons. It's kind of the whole, like, fall down 7 times, stand up 8 thing. If you fall down 7 times and say, that's it, maybe on that 8th time, you would have been 50 feet at the top, hitting the little bell to say that I made it. And so I've tried to model that for him while we're there, which is not easy to do because his energy level is about 10x what mine is. And so I'm pretty beat after being there for a little bit of time, but I want him to see that, in the times that I don't make it, that it's not something that I just throw my hands up and say, well, I'll never make it. But it's something that I want to get right back on and try again.
So it makes me think of, I love golf. I don't get to play too much anymore, but it's always, I've had a lot of people I've gone out and golfed with, and they can't wrap their brain around, like, me on the driving range is different than me on the golf course. And I'm like, driving range practice mode.
Yeah.
Okay, you could be Tiger Woods on the driving range all the time,
That's right.
But you're not going to know you're not Tiger Woods until you go tee it up.
Yep.
And it's like, now this shot counts.
That's right.
And so right. I love that language. I think that's super helpful. And there's an element of that too for me that's, when it comes to leadership, it's also kind of back to, where are other people, and meeting your son where he's at in that moment to be like, sure, practice mode, let's go with it.
Yeah.
And then maybe some lessons along the way to be like, okay, we can't stay here though.
Yeah.
And be able to kind of coach along that, but definitely meeting people where they're at based on their age, their experience. I think that's a crucial part of leadership, and especially being a dad. It's like, we just got to take the sensitivity of their experience into account. Who comes to mind to you when you think of, like, some key leaders in your life that had impact? What you're doing with Asher, and what you're doing with your clients. Who are those people for you that kind of taught you lessons? Not saying they're perfect, but they played a pivotal role in you learning what leadership was or wasn't.
Yeah. Honestly, my parents have been huge in that way. And I don't know that I even realized that they were teaching me about leadership until I've gotten into the business that I'm in right now, and obviously ones before that, and realized, oh my gosh, these life lessons that I was being taught are very applicable to what I'm doing. Like, my mom, for instance, would never call herself a leader. Like, she's very much just kind of like, she's behind the scenes. She's sort of orchestrating. She loves to give gifts. And so she's always sort of reaching out to let people know how much she cares about them.
Leading without a label.
Yeah. But would never, ever stand up in front of a room and, speak on anything for any amount of time. Like, that is so far removed from anything that she would be comfortable doing. But I think that for me, it really showed me, and especially as I've gotten into real estate, in the beginning, I'm sorry, this is kind of a spiral and piggybacking on that, but in the very beginning, when I didn't know anything about what I was doing. One of my mom's favorite quotes is the Maya Angelou quote where, people will forget what you did, forget what you say, but never forget how you made them feel. Or another way to spin it is, people don't care what you know until they know that you care, kind of thing. And so I knew, based on her example, that has been steadfast through my entire life, that if I could start this business by investing in people, because, let's be honest, I knew nothing about how to sell a house. Like, I was in some ways terrified that someone would even ask me, because here you are, you're going to spend $300,000.
You're saying, don't pick me, don't pick me.
And I'm the one who's doing this. Like, I have to write a contract that, like, I just saw for the first time 6 weeks ago and took some random classes that, said that I can do it now. So I didn't have the knowledge, the head knowledge, but I knew that what's most important to people is that they feel valued uniquely and they feel cared about. And that if I could just pour into my clients and not talk about real estate numbers, because there's 4,000 agents in this town, and we can all, regurgitate the market. Like, we can all tell you how many houses sold last month, or who's selling how many houses over here or there or whatever. But for me, especially in the beginning when I didn't even have that knowledge, I just had to believe that sowing the seeds relationally would ultimately, result in them reaching out to me when it was time to make a business decision, because I knew, and I would hope that they know, that business is not the number one reason why we're connected here. Like, it is ultimately an end goal, because everybody needs to make money. Everybody needs to support their families. But the most important thing is just to invest in people. And that is an invaluable lesson that I think that my mom and that my dad, who's an amazing man, taught me about leadership, that I didn't even know they were teaching me about leadership until I was in a position where I had to, channel the resources that I've been given and the lessons that I've learned and try to, funnel those into a business setting.
Leading without a label. There's a lot of personality types that want to be behind the scenes, and sometimes those are the strongest leaders, right? For a lot of reasons.
Yeah.
And that's where, in your role, I talk to leaders all the time, and they can get really caught up in the title or where they land in the org chart. And so I would just say to you, be faithful with what's in front of you and who's in front of you. And I think the rest of the things kind of work out. You can still have significant impact and make a huge difference. Again, leadership's about influence. And so influencing those around you in the way in which you go about connecting with people and talking to people, and they're going to remember that experience, whether it's a customer, whether it's a colleague. Just being mindful and being, maybe for you it's a season where you need to be content and just evaluate, like, this is the season I'm in, how do I maximize it? And maybe it's in a very private way, and it's not up in front, center, public. And again, I think sometimes those are the best leaders, and there's so much to learn from that. And so those are great examples of good leaders. Without naming names, if you're comfortable, we also, all of us, I think some of the strongest leadership lessons come because, wow, that's not what I want to repeat. That's not what, I know that the way that, back to Maya Angelou,
yeah,
I know the way that made me feel.
Yeah.
I don't want someone else to have to go through that. And so I think, I feel like if you've been in a career for any extent of time, you kind of have those situations pop up, but any of those come to mind, and heavy, lighthearted, whatever, but any kind of bad leadership experience you've kind of gone through that you feel comfortable sharing or it's appropriate to share?
Yeah. The industry that I'm in, it can feel very cutthroat. And we're all kind of competing for the same pool of buyers or sellers. And while I believe that the pie is big enough for all of us to have a piece, there are certainly people out there who think, like, no, I want your piece.
I need seconds.
Yeah, I'm coming back for seconds.
Yeah.
And so that's just not the way that I'm wired at all. And when I first got my license and, I would start to attend these networking events and start to meet people who were much further down the road in real estate than I was. But started to realize pretty quickly that, oh my gosh, this is the way that a lot of these people are wired, that it is going to be about like, I drink your milkshake or whatever from, I think that's several people are, but and I was nervous because I thought, like, if that's the way that I have to be successful, then I have chosen the wrong career.
Yeah.
Like,
maybe I should have taken those classes.
yeah, like, this is not a good decision at all for me to make. And I definitely have worked with and are working with even still occasionally, when I'm representing a buyer and we go show a listing and we write a contract and I'm speaking with the other agent and the other agent is, just strong arming at every turn and trying to win at every step of the way, when in my mind, like, we're all working toward the same goal here. Like, we're trying to sell a house so that your seller and my buyer can transition into this next season of their lives. And so if we don't treat this as an opportunity to collaborate and to work toward this goal together, then we're probably going to run into some roadblocks, or if and when we do run into roadblocks, we've severed parts of our relationship so much that it's going to be harder to cross those bridges because we burned them along the way. And so I think that, I always try to be mindful of who's on the other side and try to see things from their perspective and understand that if we have to have a difficult conversation because a home inspector found something wrong with the foundation, that first of all, it's not a personal affront, like, it's just part of the business process. But if my goal is to receive that and immediately go on the defensive and say, like, I'm gonna fight this tooth and nail, and we think we're doing it for the benefit of our client, but we're maybe doing it at their detriment, because at the end of the day, they just want to sell their house. So I think that has been maybe a leadership red flag, I think, for me, as I've been in the business, and I just had to believe that there is a healthier way, a more personable way, and again, a more collaborative way that we can all do this, together, and not be about just throwing each other under the bus so that we can win, because ultimately it's a win-win if we get the job done together. So
How you go about winning matters.
yeah,
Right.
absolutely.
One of the things I would think would be interesting in your position too, especially with the way in which you say you operate your business, really keeping your client front and center and about them and their future and their decisions. Like, how do you find yourself? Because obviously that's a high stakes. I'm sure you get some extremely anxious buyers. Maybe it's one where there's a contingency. I've got to do this to get that. There's like a lot of moving pieces that have to line up to make it work. So how do you almost navigate emotion sometimes in delivering hard news?
Yes, that is tricky. That is tricky because there is a lot of emotion tied up in this. If you've raised your kids in this house, if you've started a family here, if you've gone through a bitter divorce and that's the reason that you're selling.
And they lowball you. That is personal.
Yeah.
It's like, what? My baby Joey was brought.
Come on, this house is, you can't put a price tag on it. Like, well, we kind of have to.
We got to.
We got to sell the house. So it requires a certain level of empathy, putting yourself in their shoes, and again, doing that first, showing them that you care, but then being willing to, once you have established that connection, take a step back and say, we need to ultimately, though, treat this as a business transaction. By no means is this in the same category even, but it's, I admire doctors who are able to go in and deliver incredibly painful news to someone. But at the end of the day, that person wants to be leveled with. Like they want somebody to shoot from the hip because they need to know, like, okay, what's the next step? Like, what do we need to do to tackle this? And so I think if we just sort of dance around the issue and we're not willing to do what we've been hired to do, to advise people or to, draw from our wisdom to help them understand something that they don't understand and don't really have a framework for processing, then we're doing them a disservice. And so, again, my first goal is to, like, I get it. Like, I would hate to sell my house too, because I would have to walk in every room and see, like, well, this is where I rocked my son to sleep, or, what have you. But ultimately, we cannot let that cloud our judgment and get in the way of this transaction that we're both involved in and that you've hired me to help you with.
Yeah, I would imagine if I were in that position, it is like this. How do you validate that? Yeah, you're absolutely right. You do have all those memories. But you brought me in because the goal is to sell this.
Yeah.
So it's almost like, how do I validate, but then also reset them back to like, but
yeah.
But here's what I think we're going to have to do. It's going to be hard to do that. It's going to be hard to take that lower amount. That doesn't diminish your experience in the house, but it helps us get to that next season that you almost restoring reality a little bit and pulling it out of that emotional realm, because that can be so hard to have any kind of rationality where our brains are wired. So.
But refusing to go there at all doesn't build the foundation for you to even then be able to present the hard numbers or the truth. Because again, they're just going to think like, well, this guy's just here to get a commission check. Like
this is all transactional.
Yeah, he doesn't care about me as a person. And even though he may not think that my feelings about the value of this house are valid, like I feel them, and so I need to be seen in that way.
So last question, John. I spent some time in a training earlier this week with some younger leaders, early 20s, kind of towards the beginning of their career. When you think about your life and your leadership lessons, like, do you have any kind of invaluable tidbits or learnings along the way that may be helpful for them? They're top of mind for me, and so just, I guess, asking on their behalf, what comes to mind that would be helpful for them to hear?
Yeah, I think, I'm in my 40s now, and in some ways I feel like I've just now started to gain some traction and feel like that I am in a career path that makes sense for me. And I think that that probably would have happened a lot earlier on in my journey if I had felt like, I don't know if the right way to frame it is to say that if I had believed in myself, because I think that that's probably something that we all talk about or think about. But I would be asked to take on these projects or these tasks, and I would think like, there's no way are they asking me, or no way, am I really equipped to handle this? And I think I would imagine that I would need to be further down the road in order for me to say yes to that and feel like that I would meet their expectations, I guess. And even getting into real estate, like I said, I was so nervous in the beginning that someone would ask me to help them sell their house, because I thought like, who am I? Like, I'm not anything yet, And I think that we can kind of get caught up in that cycle of like, I'm not anything yet, or I'm not enough yet, or I haven't read the leadership books I need to read yet. And so until that, we're just sort of in this holding pattern. And if we're not careful, that holding pattern then becomes a season of our lives, and then becomes, years or decades of our lives where we're to kind of call back on the take a step and then another step, that if we had just decided like, what's in front of me is unknown, but I'm going to walk into it and trust that at least where I am on this journey so far will be enough to inform what that next step is for me. And it took me a very long time to finally, I guess, believe in myself and believe in my history enough and the lessons that I had learned to confidently say, okay, like I can do this. I can step into this, and I can be a leader and feel confident enough, to take on that role, because I can lean on what is behind me, and I don't have to know, the 100 feet ahead, but I can know one. And again, I just think that I probably, if I had been able to internalize that and to live that out earlier on, it wouldn't take me as long as it has taken me. But on another level, I'm glad it has taken me that long, because it has given me an invaluable wealth of experience in so many different areas that I can now apply moving forward to. So I would just say, for younger leaders out there, hey, yes, you have a lot to learn, but yes, you've already learned a lot, and so trust that the equipping that you've already been doing and working toward, it is enough to take that step into the unknown.
Well, thank you just for sharing and taking time to talk to our listeners. And I know there's a lot of lessons in there that weren't always easy to learn, but it's, like you said, it's invaluable nonetheless. And so thanks again for being on the podcast.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It's great to be here.
Absolutely, man. Thanks.